Welcome, everyone, and we are live for another edition of Your Impact Attack. That's right, it's Your Impact Attack. I wish you'd stop giving it back to us. I mean, what is this? We try to give you a gift, and it's like you just not appreciative. I'm not appreciative of the show this week, but I am appreciative of my co-host. Oh, who am I? I'm Jamie the Vet Williams, and I'm going to pause for Ray's intro music. And my co-host, as always, is Brandon. Hello, Brandon.
Howdy ho.
Gosh, you sure do smell a lot like flowers.
Are you
Okay.
making sure you're brushing your teeth?
So yeah, this is gonna be it's gonna be an interesting one. Let's just start off with some pleasantries and some small talk. How was your week? Did anything interesting happen, or anything we want to comment on in the world?
Oh man, not really a whole lot going on, but let's say what is up to our friends in the chat. We got
Let's
a
do
lot
it.
of people hanging out. We got Canada Spaceman, we got Buckshot Kid, we got Lab Rat, we got Javi Uchida, Lisbeth, what is up?
Yes,
The gang is here.
that is a gang, and who knows? We're probably not gonna have only them. We're probably gonna have other people joining us as we go, because some people, they get that notification and then they come running, but it takes them a second. So,
And make sure you ring that bell.
smash the like button. Yeah. So, all right. Well, we've got plenty to talk about, because we've got a couple of shows, and we're just gonna let's just jump right in because we shouldn't be wasting time. We don't waste time here. Here at the Impact Attack, this is not a place where time is wasted. Time is precious. We don't waste it. We don't dilly dally. We don't. All right, let's get to it. So, our episode of Impact is it's gonna. Well, what else would it start with, really? We're gonna get Bully Ray coming out with a music, a full entrance. He's got his broken trophy, and why wouldn't he? Because it's totally okay to do what he did, and everyone should welcome him back with open arms. And everybody like, oh, here's Bully Ray. He's been here all day. He's first segment to go out there. Let's hit his music and give him a warm welcome. Like, let's just do that. If you
And of course,
notice,
you already cashed in the trophy, so he's still carrying it around.
yeah, it's broken half, but he's got to have it, just in case anybody forgets. It's going to be part of his promo, Brandon, you know that. Of which, he does some crowd work, as making idle threats to people that he's not going to, well, he may half cash in on one of his threats, but, and during this time, like he like stares at this kid he just stares at him, and the kid's not the least bit scared. He's trying to give a wrestler a high five that's coming close to him, and and Bully's staring at him and probably trying to hope that the kid's gonna cry, and the kid just sits there confused, does not care at all. So anyway, he comes out and does his usual predictable, like, I told you exactly what I was going to do. I don't know why you're mad at me. That whole speech, that was, we knew he was going to say something like that. And before we get any further into that, okay, so what did you think of the entrance, the promo up to this point?
I mean, it was a decent introduction to, like, if you've never seen Impact before, to kind of like a reminder of the things Bully's done, who he is, why he's a scumbag. I was kind of surprised they kind of glossed over Aces and Eights or didn't even really mention it at all, just the Hogan stuff.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't mention Aces and Eights, just stuff they did, like Brooke Hogan, right? Wasn't that around that time too?
Yep, the whole thing where he claimed took credit for running Hogan out of TNA, when anybody can go back and see that the last image of Hogan in TNA was him dragging Dixie out with her clinging to his leg.
Well, that's fine too. a heel can lie. So yeah, so anyway, so he's out there saying all this shit. And then it was very, very polite of Rich Swann to wait like 10 minutes before he ran out and attacked. You got to give the man the floor. You can't just come out and just punch him right away. We couldn't open the show with Rich Swann punching Bully as he's arriving at the building, or we couldn't do any of that stuff because we've got to let's just be as cliched, phony pro wrestling as we possibly can. Speaking of cliche, phony pro wrestling, I didn't think Rich Swann's punches were cliche, phony. They look pretty good. Like when he first came out there, like he looked like he was suitably mad at Bully, and we already knew that they were going to have a match because they announced it the previous week. And so they go from this into that gigantic Amazonian referee runs down, and she turns this into a match. And then this match goes on for a while, and I'm just thinking to myself, why does this even take longer than 10 seconds for Rich Swann to get DQ'd for hitting Bully with anything he can get his hands on? That's what I'm thinking, like, as I'm watching it.
Yeah, it should have been Rich Swann just taking the fight to move whatever he could, like, screw the result. I just want to kick your ass.
Yeah, who cares about a match, But it really just ends up with Bully just grabbing his chain and hitting him right in front of the referee, So to get to the same exact place, to get to the same exact place, but by doing things different and somewhat more realistically, I'll say somewhat.
They tried.
You start the show with Bully showing up at the building like everything's going to be just fine, and then him getting jumped and all this stuff happening. You don't even really get to you could get to the match thing later. Like you start fighting in the parking lot, whatever. Then you have people come out there. Then you have Tommy Dreamer come out there in the parking lot. Then you have Scott D'Amore come out there in the parking lot to do all the stuff that he's about to do that I'm about to tell you. Then you can somehow get this match, in the ring scheduled for later. And then you have the same kind of thing where, you start the match, but it just ends up being like, someone gets DQ'd, whether it's Bully or Rich or whichever way you want to do it, and just make it clear that this is never going to happen in some official normal capacity. So that's, but instead they didn't do that. They have, after the chain strike to the throat, then Bully gets like 5 more minutes of heat, just beating Rich Swann around the ring with chairs and whatever else. And then, finally Tommy Dreamer runs out and Scott D'Amore runs out. Dreamer's trying to talk some sense to Bully. And D'Amore's not interested in that. He just repeats his stripping routine from Overdrive and just starts taking off things and throwing them at Bully. And then, he
wants to fight Bully.
Yeah, he Brock Lesnar some officials, like just forcibly moving them out of the way. And then, of course, Bully Ray, making all the sense in the world, reminds him that, yeah, he is a piece of shit, as Scott D'Amore keeps screaming off the mic and into the mic. And then he reminds him that you're the guy that hired me. So,
Which, again, I'm probably thinking way harder than this than they did. That could actually make sense as to why Scott would want to come down and fight Bully himself, is because he personally feels responsible for what Bully did, so he's going to take care of it himself.
Right.
Because he's the one who hired him.
Right. As soon as Bully gets his full entrance, does a promo, has a match, right after that, he's going to get so mad. Like after all that, he'll be so furious.
It's like they have an idea, but they only know to go halfway with it.
They only know wrestling. That's all they know. But not the good, not the
half.
Yeah, not the wrestling. They know the shit that WWE has done for years and trying to be, setting these standards for stupid shit that doesn't make any sense if you think about it for 2 seconds. But and that's okay if like, well, I mean it's not okay, but I'm just saying like if you figure, oh, we're Impact, nobody's watching, we're just gonna goof around and have a good time, which again we're gonna talk a lot about that, but you're doing this, you're pulling off these angles, or you're trying to pull off these angles to the point that you really get people angry and invested in it. And like the more serious you get with these angles, the sillier everything else looks and this looks, because it's like, why are you even trying? You're beating everybody over the head with the stuff that's fake, and no one's going to get legitimately angry anymore at these type of things. At least I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everybody in there, they really are buying it, or maybe they're just doing what they think they're supposed to do, booing, an obvious heel. I don't know. But this could be a lot better. And instead it's just the same old stuff that you could have done this in your sleep. You could have booked this whole segment out and laid it out in your sleep, because you've seen it so many times on WWE programming over the years, and of course Impact programming too. So, but overall, did you have anything else to add to this mess?
Yeah, do you notice that Swan seemed kind of off in the match a little bit?
How do you mean?
Like there's a spot where Bully went for a back body drop, and it seemed like the spot was supposed to be Swan was supposed to like over rotate and land on his feet and kind of go from there, but then it seemed like he gave up halfway and landed on his hip.
I don't know. I didn't notice. I didn't really notice that much, but
Yeah, and there's another spot towards the end of getting into the finish where it seemed like there was a spot where like they landed close to each other and Bully had to slap Swan and he moved away quickly, like, hey, you're supposed to not be so close to me.
That I did see, which is weird, because it just looked like he reached out and like patted him on the, like, it's like he almost tried to spank him or something, or slap his leg or whatever. Just,
I know, it looked kind of like, hey, you're not in the right position, get away from me.
Right. Which, okay, yeah. The way he did that, it's like, what else could he be doing but saying, hey, this is fake, get in position.
Exactly.
So
which Bully's usually better than.
Usually he is. So I don't know. There you could be onto something there. Maybe something happened. I don't know. But yeah, that's a little something else. Hopefully he's all right. He didn't suffer any. He didn't take any blows to the head in the match, I don't think, did he?
Nah, didn't look like it.
Man, everything looked normal. All right. Well, so we're going to move on to the Trey Miguel vignette with music underneath. We're trying to get this new attitude Trey Miguel. And he tags his belt, and he can't do that right either. It just looks like a green mess on his championship. So.
This is like a green M.
Yeah, barely. So what do you think of the new and improved attitude, Trey Miguel?
I mean, it's the most charismatic he's looked since he's been solo.
Well, I found him even more charismatic at another wrestling federation, but we'll talk about that later again. All right, so next is Moose.
And I don't know if the line that he threw at the end of when he said he was the future and the future looks, then he walks off. That's, I don't know. That could be me reading into it too much. It could be setting up a feud with him and Kaz, which again would make sense because Kaz has talked about his respect for the X division, and he can do the whole, look what you did to the belts. I'm gonna try to take it from you and put the respect back into it.
Yeah. Hey, I gave this up because I need to be the world champion, but I'll go get it back now because I ain't gonna be the world champion.
I mean, that's what they would do.
Right. It's exactly what they would do. And again, speaking of won't be the world champion, Moose Versus Bhupinder Gujar. So there's an interesting pairing. A couple of spear using guys. Guess that was the thought behind the booking here. Um, and speaking of the spear, like, who knew that the whole time the answer to the gargoyle spear was simply stepping aside, and letting him crash to the ground? Like, leave it to Moose the genius to figure this out.
So
He
simple.
so simple, so basic, so easy, and so fun. As Moose hits his own spear, and then he grabs the mic and he starts talking about how he told everybody that Bully, was exactly who he was, a scumbag, and nobody listened to him. So he doesn't want to hear it anymore. In fact, he doesn't ever want to hear you say his name.
And then
And
he appears.
that's right. We believe in Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry appears, and now I'm like, all right, here we go. I can just, if I was casually watching this and not doing it for a podcast or something, I could just say, okay, now you got the only reasons to watch the show in one segment, so I can just skip the rest easily and not worry about missing anything. So Joe Hendry comes out. He tells Moose that he knows he says, from one champ to a former one, I know a cry for help when I hear one. And Moose doesn't like that. So of course there's a tussle, and then surprise, surprise, Gujar hits his gargoyle spear after all, as he came back from his post-match beating and shit canning that Moose had given him. So an intrigue of Moose and Joe Hendry here. And Joe Hendry is a massive individual, and he looks like a small child next to Moose. So sometimes you just forget how big Moose is. But yeah, were you excited to see this pairing here?
This could actually be really entertaining if they gave him the chance to be.
Yes. I'm worried, though. And I'm sure you understand my reasoning for being worried.
That's one of those things where it's a fine line where, depending on how Hendry and Moose play off each other, it could be really bad or really good. There's not much wiggle room in between.
Yeah. All right. So next is, or did you have anything else?
No, I think that's about it for that segment.
Okay. So next is Speedball with Gia and no music underneath. He basically just says Kenny King will not affect his goals and attitude. That's what I took out of his promo. It's very, very basic and calm, just like he is. He's not trying to put a lot of character into this, but that's kind of his character. He's supposed to be a Zen martial arts master, so I'm not going to hold it against him too much.
And I've said it before, he makes that work, and he's the only guy doing it.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then we get a Mickey and Deanna package to hype us up for what will end up being our our wrestling main event later. Because oh boy. And then we get Burt versus Frank. It's just a classic wrestling match until another blatantly in front of the referee DQ.
Second on the show.
Yeah, Macklin just says, fuck it, I'm hitting you with a chair. And the ref's like, disqualified, And, yeah, so I'm just, is this a theme now? Like, we're just gonna, what is the idea of just stealing the thunder of like a main event program just to stick in the middle of the show for no reason? Where was this going anyway? Is there going to be some long thing with Macklin and Kazarian? I don't know.
Unless that's Kazarian's right off to send him back to AEW, or they're not letting him stay there anymore. Or maybe. Just all speculation. We don't know.
Yep. All right. Well, next we have Tasha and Savannah having a little chat backstage. And Tasha is suggesting that Savannah show her how it's done next week against Taya. because Savannah seemed to imply that, or at least Tasha inferred that it was her fault that they lost the championship match. So, yeah. So now Savannah's gonna take a shot against Ty. So now we got some dissension with Evans and Steels, and so that's a little. I guess I don't know. Have we? How long have they been together? Is it already time to break this up? I mean, what are we doing here?
I mean, they already buried Evans as the heavy a while back. It's kind of been dead in the water for a while.
Okay, well, apparently not, because we're continuing along with more Evans-related story. All right, now is next is a Fat Eddie with Gia and no music underneath. And Fat Eddie, basically takes a roundabout way of saying that he's focused on the future, which I would normally think that, Fat Eddie's future comes in a bucket with his choice of sides. But right before he walks off, he walks into Delirious, who doesn't make any weird Delirious language noises. He just stares at Eddie, and Eddie kind of just backs off and out of the frame. So there you go. Eddie and Delirious. Yay. Delirious also looking like he's pretty hungry. So this feud makes sense in that way. But I don't know. I guess they have, they've got their Ring of Honor history and whatever. Whatever that is, I'm not sure. I don't know how Eddie Edwards versus Delirious has ever gone in Ring of Honor. I don't know if that was a thing. Maybe somebody else knows, but looks like we're gonna get it here. So maybe that's just a match for next week or the week after or whatever.
I'm just happy to see Delirious getting a weekly spot on the show. Like, it is kind of a bit of personal bias since I actually know the people who trained him.
Right. Well, so it's interesting that Delirious is Mr. Ring of Honor, and I don't know
that is interesting that he's not part of the AEW deal.
Right, and I don't know that he's not, because he might have been on one of their shows that focus on Ring of Honor before, but he's also been here at Impact. So I don't, and we've seen the talent go back and forth as we were just talking about Kazarian and stuff like that. So, I don't think that he's necessarily out, but I don't know if he's going to be part of Final Battle. So, Buckshot Kid saying he was the Ring of Honor trainer. That's true, but that was a non-camera role. So next is Guns, Machine Guns. They want their shot at Heath and Rhino, and I guess Heath is gonna make that happen. I guess that's what, as you can see, the lights that Brandon has here. This is very similar to what we saw during this. This is, there was a couple, they kind of hid the lights in the Tasha Savannah thing. They had it behind this weird, there's like this weird cage with liquor in it that they were standing by to shoot these promos in front of a disgusting gray, wall. And then they put the little RGBs up by there. But that one was a little bit, muted and hidden. And this one, though, it was in full effect. It's really the only one they have. The only shot like this, so...
Didn't they have the show in a distillery?
I guess they did. Which is, again, another... I guess that's Impact, folks. I don't know. Maybe all of this alcohol on hand is how we end up getting the show we got. Who knows? But this was just your normal promo.
Yeah, it's weird. This show seemed to fall off after the first half.
Yeah. Buckshot Kid says not to blame you for the lights. That was his idea. Well, it's all right. All in the service of parody. It's perfectly fine. And it somehow still looks better than theirs. And this
is that $5 attachment on the phone I found at Dollar General.
Yeah, see? There you go. There's the budget. There's the Impact budget. All right, main event, sort of. Deonna Purrazzo versus Mickie James, where if Mickie loses, she has to retire. So what do you think happened? Her career wasn't going to come to an end on a random Impact episode, but what'd you think of the match? Any notes or observations for these ladies?
2 commercial breaks in a match is way too long. If you're putting 2 commercial breaks in a match, why is it on TV? Why is it not on pay-per-view?
Well, because
especially when there's actually enough like history and meat on the bone between the two of them, that they could have built up something that had a little bit more heat to it and a little bit more. Is this going to be the one that she goes under to? Like maybe something where leading up to it, Deonna injures like a body part and just keeps going after it, leading up to into the pay-per-view. So there's at least you believe there's a chance she might lose this. Whereas this is just kind of you made my friend upset and leave. I want to take your career.
Well, we know that it's not going to be on pay-per-view because they look like they're ready to end this now, because here comes Jordynne Grace to challenge Mickie at Hard to Kill. It's like, look, I'm tired of seeing you. Let's just end this right now. Well, she doesn't say it in those words, but that's what I imagine the booking is thinking of. Like, all right, can we just retire her already? And maybe that has something to do with Buckshot Kid's comment about you could tell Mickie got slow in this match, but it was her best match for some time.
That's exactly what I thought. She definitely has been. She seems like she's slowing down, but this was the best one she's had since this thing started, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see. But the real main event, though, is well, let's see. How do I delicately phrase this? Medina kills Eric Young. I mean, there's no other way to say this. I've made the comments about filmed crimes dozens of times, in pro wrestling, but this. Not only was this a filmed crime, but this was
edited, set to music,
with effects,
and he's still walking free.
Yep. Yeah, and not only so like we're saying here, who filmed this, who edited it, who did the effects, who added the music, and then. When this got handed...
Those are all accomplices. Those are all accessories to the murder.
Right. And then who handed it in? Like, who handed this to Scott D'Amore and said, you got to play this? And then who decided to air this? Was it Scott D'Amore? He's like, I see no problems with this. Let's just put this at the end of our program. Like, as a non sequitur, we'll just show this murder here.
Yeah, Cody Deaner handed me a tape of him killing Eric Young. Should I... hand it to the cops? No, I'm going to put it on air.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it was really nice of them to have this professionally edited with slow motion and... Yeah. I mean, can anybody in any way defend this as something that we should be seeing on a program that's not like a scripted drama or a movie or whatever? Is there any defense for it?
I mean, I get it if he's going back to WWE and you need to write him off. They did it with Taya, and I thought that was clever and creative and not insulting to the intelligence. And it wrote her off. Like, you can't... It's like the third time they've done this. You can't just flat out murder somebody in wrestling. How do you... where do you go from there?
You don't.
Like, do you send cameras into the afterlife? Is Eric Young just chilling in purgatory waiting for whatever?
I mean, it works for the decay. I mean, they can go into the other realms.
You're giving them ideas.
I'm not giving them ideas. I'm recounting things they've done already. I just, I don't have to explain to anybody what's wrong with this, even though I did some of it. We both covered what's wrong with it, but like just in the general sense of not only logic, but even just entertainment value. Like, I didn't even think this was particularly good for what they were trying to do. It was like an overly pretentious someone's idea of what like a dramatic action slash murder scene would be if they were making like a TV, like an actual TV show like Lucha Underground or something, where they're like, they don't expect you to think that this is legit one-to-one reality, whereas everything else on the show is kind of doing that. Like, this is a contrast to, you know, you've got Bully out there with people's wives and using a pile driver like a gun and holding people hostage with a pile driver and all this stupid shit, but that's happening in the arena space and we see it, and it's supposed to be somewhat, you know, like dramatic. It's supposed to get heat. It's supposed to be all these other things, and that comes across as laughable, at least to me. And then you do this, which is just like the heavily edited version of it, which Impact likes to do. And so this is what you get when you have, you know, these people that are, they grew up on sports entertainment and they want it to be anything except just pro wrestling, like what it's supposed to be. They try to be creative. They try to flex their writing chops to see, like, trust me, nobody's going to hire you for anything else because you did this. You know, you are going to work in wrestling. Jimmy Jacobs is going to work in wrestling. He's not going to get another job somewhere else, at least not because of some resume. They say, oh, well, did you see in December of 2022 where I filmed the murder of Eric Young? Like, that should get me a job on one of your TV shows, right? So hire me for NCIS or whatever, you know? It's just not gonna happen. Just saying. So,
Like, if you wanted to have, like, do the passing of the torch, you could have just had Cody or Diener just beat the shit out of him and leave him laying bloody in the jail. You didn't need to pull out the knife and stab him.
yep. And that should all be, yeah, first of all, this jail. Is that same jail? Is that the one where, like, they supposedly cleansed Rhino of the sickness? Is this the same thing?
I think that was supposed to be like, it's supposed to be that the symbology of like where the whole faction was born.
Yeah. 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 So the whole thing should have been, you have this prison or whatever. If you want to, you know, I'll even allow them that. Okay. Violent by Design has somehow secured an abandoned prison. Let's go with that. Sure. It could happen. Right. And then somebody has one handheld camera and they filmed this thing, and you got to do it just like you do anything else in wrestling. One take, no, and obviously you don't need just one take. You could, there are camera tricks to make it look like you don't cut, but you know, but it's supposed to appear like this is, someone is guerrilla filming this, and then all this stuff just happens, and then that gets submitted. And then the announcers have to talk about it. Like, okay, so we received this footage earlier, deliberated on whether to show it or not, but, you know, because it concerns Violent by Design, we're going to go ahead and do that. And then they give people a warning maybe, and then they play the footage, and then something like that. But you can't just start playing it. Like, oh yeah, this time for this now. We're just doing this now. You have to let people know, okay, look, this is kind of separate from the show, but not really. So check this out. You know, then it seems like, oh, what do they have? What do they get? You know, like now there's some intrigue to it. So, yeah, lots of great comments here in the chat. I'll read some of them. Should Diener get a teardrop tattoo? Yes. Which was better, the Bravo shooting or this? I don't know what bitter means. You're complaining about this, but you know what the next show is? Well, you may notice that not one muffin has been eaten yet. I'm saving it. NCIS no longer the greatest show. Impact Attack is, says Candace Spaceman. Bugshot says they had to do a stabbing. The electric chair didn't have enough power. Well, yeah, it was abandoned. Then nobody's paid the bill in however long. And Lab Rat saying, if you want to do a crime, just become a wrestler first. We had that idea with Nails back in 1992. So there it is. There's Impact. There's the Impact episode. Any final thoughts on this tragedy that has one tiny, tiny bright spot of hope with Moose and Joe Hendry?
Moose and Joe Hendry, I believe.
All right, let's believe in that, because what I've got next on tap.
The only thing that I don't really like about that is I have a feeling is that digital media title is going to be more of an albatross than anything. Like that, those two don't need that involved.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Although, nah, I don't know. I haven't followed any of the stuff that Joe Hendry's done. I don't follow him on social media for whatever reason. So I don't know if he's making good use of this digital media championship, but I would hope that he would. And I think Moose could, but I don't know if Moose would either. It just doesn't seem serious enough for him, like in the headspace of his character, the wrestling god, to just have this extremely minor and seemingly like just side project title. I just don't feel like he would be into that.
Exactly. It's the world title or bust for a character like that.
Yeah. All right. So, that being said, let me just ask you, did you watch the Impact Provincial Wrestling Federation?
Unfortunately, I did not have a chance to. I had to work all weekend, and in fact, I actually finished Impact Attack a few hours before the show.
Unfortunately,
yeah.
I consider you very fortunate. But you know what? I thought this might happen. So, I've decided that this is what we're going to do. I'm not going to dignify this with a recap, like as if anybody that didn't see this wanted to see it and somehow missed it. Anybody that wanted to watch this shit would have watched it. So I'm not going to tell you anything about what happened on the show or anything like that. We're instead going to play a game that actually works well whether you watch the show or not. Because this game is called Rate the Gimmick, in which
okay.
I just wrote down everybody that appeared on the show and what they appeared as. And damn it, some of these people I had to look up because they're nobody. But I was very happy to see one person, and we'll talk about that when I get to it. And the reason that I'm happy. It's the only person I was happy to see. Everything else was just soul-crushingly terrible. So right off the bat. And what I have here, okay, because I knew that I would need so much, I forego the normal size muffins in favor of these small bite-sized muffins. And the game is, if I run out of muffins before we get to the end of the ratings, because every time somebody gets rated a 0, whether it's by you or me, I'm going to eat a muffin. All right? And I don't like my muffins' chances of surviving this. All right. Yes, fancy muffins. Fat is not a gimmick, even though, bless their hearts, some people try. Oh, Sonic's just in time for the game. The game is Rate That Gimmick. And you guys, you can play, anybody that watched this or didn't watch it, if you're just going off my description, you can put your rating in the chat out of 10 too. We're doing just out of 10, number out of 10. And so you guys play along too, okay? You may not necessarily affect my muffin eating, but you will be heard. All right. So the first off, we've got the same. A lot of these gimmicks are returning gimmicks, like Scott D'Amore and Josh Matthews are still playing the Scavelli, Giuseppe Scavelli Senior and Junior. Okay. And then Matthew Raywalt is playing. His character is Pat Gorski. He wears a Chicago Bears hat and sunglasses. So right off the bat, 0 out of 10 for all this. So I'm, and I know, you don't have anything to go on, but you're just going to have to agree with me that this is a 0. All Josh Matthews does is put on a fake mustache, like a Dutch Mantel mustache, and that's it. He doesn't attempt to do an accent. Like, clearly, Scott D'Amore I think he's trying to make fun of, like, Italians, but not very well. But then, Josh Matthews just doesn't. He's just Josh Matthews with a mustache. So he gets a 0. It would have been less insulting if you just showed up as yourself and didn't even give yourself a name. That's good. I needed that. Okay. First match. Okay, we got Monty Moonlight, which is Zicky Dice. And Monty Moonlight is a guy that looks like he's probably a lounge singer. Comes out, he's got a drink in his hand. So, I'm going to give this gimmick 2 out of 10 because it's just Hangman Page. Coming out with a drink in your hand, that's Hangman Page's gimmick. So, I'm giving that a 2 out of 10. But what do you think of a wrestling lounge singer? What would you rate that out of 10? You're unmute yourself first before you give your score.
I've actually heard that gimmick pitched before already. Like he comes out with a cocktail glass in one hand, cigarette in the other, and singing on his way to the ring.
Yeah, he tried to wrestle with the drink in his hand. Eventually, he probably spilled something in the ring. Lab Rat says anything he does a 10. Well, yeah, I'm sorry, that's not going to be the case here. And then we've got Rich Swann as Rapid Delivery Pete. It is a pizza man. He has a hat. He's carrying pizza boxes that have nothing in them. And you can tell because when they get smashed, no pizza falls out. So it's just a straight up pizza delivery, man. I'm going to give that a 2 also. Although Rich only gets a 2 because he's really trying to get the people into it as you would expect him to do. Otherwise it'd be a 1. But yeah. So what do you think of a pizza man out of 10?
I'll give it a 3.
3? Okay. Little bias. Okay. See. Next is Dexter Petticoat. I don't know who this is. He's got like Coke bottle glasses and a wig, but and he's like a backstage announcer, but I don't know who this really was. Maybe somebody in the chat knows, but like that's one of the people I was like, who is this? He's probably somebody that works on the back or something. Was he trying to be TMNT Secret of the Ooze pizza guy? Keno? Ernie Reyes Jr.? No, that would have been something. Pizza martial artist. This was just straight up guy that delivers pizza. And the person who was doing like the card rundown or whatever thought this was Pineapple Pete. So you're a racist. Not every black guy with dreadlocks is Pineapple Pete. This Rich Swann is clearly Rich Swann. So, yeah, so Dexter Petticoat, don't know who that is. Isn't there already someone doing the pizza guy gimmick? Hatebot wants to know. This is
Yeah.
the
Yeah, AEW signed
IPWF. Yeah, this is the IPWF. We're talking about a completely different wrestling federation from back in the 80s. So I don't know if somebody's doing something different now. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna give Dexter Petticoat a 1 out of 10 just because he wore the thick glasses, but I don't know. I don't know who it is. Still waiting on the answer for that. Bill Ding, the evil architect. All right, that's Trey Miguel. We've seen him do this before. I'm gonna give Bill Ding a 5 out of 10 because Trey Miguel cuts a better promo as Bill Ding than he does as himself, and he uses the tape measure and pretends it's his penis. So for those two reasons, 5 out of 10.
At least he's being clever and creative with it. At least that's something.
Yeah, that's the best I can. That's the best score I think I give on this show. I think Bill Ding is the highest rating. So spoiler alert, it's not gonna get any better from here.
He needs to lead a faction of all the Disco Inferno characters.
Yeah, there are others. This won't be the last one. And then Andrew Everett is making a appearance as Jack Hammer, who is another construction guy, but doesn't have a hammer or anything else other than like a hard hat. So I'm giving him a 1 out of 10. All right, so it was Crazy Steve playing Dexter. Okay, yeah. I've never seen Crazy Steve without crazy clown makeup. So that makes sense. Thank you very much. Of course, to get stats and figures and other things, of course it would be Elizabeth, right? Why wouldn't it? All right, so Bill Ding and Jack Hammer. If I just describe these to you as basically two construction workers, except one pretends that the measuring tape is his penis, what do you want to rate these guys out of 10?
I'm wondering why they're not a tag team.
Apparently, they just don't get along on the site.
Let's average them out at a 3.
So a 3 each.
Well,
So by averaging, you're saying that they would each get a 6, but you're dividing by 2? Or what?
Wait, did I do that right?
I don't know.
I thought it was add them together and divide by 2 and you get your average.
Oh, yeah, you're right. All right, so a 3, 3, 6 divided by 2, 3. So they each get a 3? Is that what we're doing? Okay. That's still plenty. That's high. I guess if I added them together, I would get an average of 3 too, but they're definitely not. One's a 5 and one's a 1 in my opinion. Lab Rat heard one's a union guy, the other's not. Right? Did he at least have some jacks like the kids game? No, he didn't. He couldn't think of anything other than just wearing a hard hat, which Bill Ding is already wearing. And he had brown overalls. I just, there was no thought put into this. That's why he gets a 1. I'd give him a 1 just because he did actually bring out like a hard hat. All right, now Tom, the announcer, Tom Hannafin, Tom Phillips, Tom, whatever you want to call him, is Ottoman of some indeterminate European ancestry. If he
would have came out as one of the Jim Varney Ottomans, I would have popped.
Well, he didn't. He just came out as his fucking self. So he gets a 1 out of 10 from me. You get a 1 and not a 0 because you attempted an accent. Terrible though it was. You still did better than Josh Matthews. So 1 out of 10 for Ottoman. What about you? Do you think he deserves any more than that? Again, reminding everyone that this is just Tom, not dressed differently, no other flourishes, no haircut, no wig, just Tom doing an accent.
0.5.
0.5. All right. Well, I avoided eating another muffin, but I'm not going to do it here because there's another team called Glue, and they're going to be in the main event against the IPWF team in like a Survivor Series type face off for the control of the company. They've tried to work a storyline into this for some reason. Don't ask any further questions about it. GLUE stands for Great Lakes Unionized Wrestling, and they bring out this parade of guys, which I'll talk about later when I get to them. And they're led by Walter Chestnut, who is just David Penzer. Again, just David Penzer. No extra anything. Just David Penzer changing his name to Walter Chestnut. No crazy outfit. Just David Penzer. That's going to be a 0 for me, dog. Sorry. And his promo is terrible, by the way. There's a reason that he's a ring announcer and not like a manager or anybody that has to talk in wrestling other than say people's names. And they appear. I believe in Dave Penzer. Clap, clap.
While also announcing their height and weight and where they are from.
Well, these muffins really make up for the fact that I have to relive this trauma. Alright. So, what do you rate Walter Chestnut out of 10?
Is it possible to go negative?
It is.
Let's go -1.
-1. Oh, shit. That technically counts as 0. Okay, before I eat this. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Georgia Cobb. That's just Jordan Grace. Again, no attempt whatsoever to do anything different. Same hair. Same outfit. No personality. She just calls herself Georgia Cobb. Which you would think she would have some corn-related farmer's daughter type outfit or something. Nope. Just Jordan Grace has just changed her name again, so that's a 0. So now I need to eat another muffin. So I got 2 in a row now. And then there's the $304,000 man who is R.D. Evans. You guys know who R.D. Evans is? Because I sure as fuck didn't. This guy used to work in WWE as a creative writer. I think he's the guy that got fired at the Hall of Fame. And then he works here now. He's pretty tall. I think we've seen him on Impact before. I forget who he was though. But he may have been like when Moose and Josh Alexander were doing that thing, and there was that weird tall lawyer, the bald white guy.
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
yeah, he
him.
was a Deanna's lawyer too, wasn't he?
I think so. Yeah, he's playing the $304,000 man, which is just a fucking, like he put on jeans, like he's one of those like oil tycoon type guys. Not very creative. 1 out of 10 for that. And then he brings out to face Georgia Cobb, Wanda the Werewoman, which is Savannah Evans, and she's got like a little. She put like paint on the end of her nose like a kitty, even though it's a wolf. And I give that a 1 out of 10 as well. I have to do my negative muffin. So, Georgia Cobb. What do you rate Jordan Grace as showing up as herself out of 10?
I rate that as a ugh.
Fair enough. $304,000 man. How does that sound?
What? Where does that even come from?
It comes from $1 Million Man, but he doesn't
mean,
have that much.
Yeah, but what's the significance of the 304,000?
Who knows? They probably just thought it probably does have some inside thing to it, but maybe they just thought it's a funny sounding number, which it's not. Let's see. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. All right. I think I'm current on my muffins. Unless you're going to give the $304,000 Man or Wanda the Werewoman any more zeros. What do you think?
Man, this. Like, did anybody even watch Southpaw Wrestling, or did they say, hey, they did an 80s thing, let's do that too?
I think Jimmy Jacobs did Southpaw Wrestling in WWE and brought it with him. That's what I think. He thought that shit was funny. They probably were like, whatever, we don't care. Just, you're not... Just him and the Good Brothers sitting around drinking, coming up with these ideas. That's their idea of funny. They do it. Jimmy Jacobs goes to Impact Wrestling. The Good Brothers are there. They do it. The Good Brothers even played the same characters. So, I mean, blame Jimmy. All right, well, let's
Special
just move.
guest in the chat.
Oh yeah, I remember him.
What's up, Colin?
Does your fiance know you're here? Lady Bird Johnston. That's Jessica. It's basically just Jessica, but her name is Lady Bird Johnson. And I think she has something on. What is it? Is it a hat? Is it glasses? It's something, because I gave her a 1. So she must have done something. And keep in mind, like, I do realize that the whole idea of this is supposed to be, these are terrible gimmicks, right? Because if you could come up with a good gimmick, you would use it. You wouldn't be doing it on a parody event. So, like, of course they're not going to be good, but you should also think of something that's entertaining that maybe nobody would ever do.
This is the show to have fun with bad gimmicks. And just go all out with it.
Well, they did. They went all out with bad, and in some cases, no gimmick. Just changing your name. So, all right. Now here's a comment from Canada Spaceman that's probably wrong. Let me read it. Southpaw was great, plus the previous IWPF was funny in some segments, like Jordan and the girls cruising for guys was funny. You must have the worst life. If you think that's funny, you would have to have never seen anything remotely comedic. But I know that's not true, because you post comments or quotes from funnier things all the time, so you must have seen them. But you cannot be entertained by this. You're not allowed. Colin says Jordan Grace has bad gimmicks. Well, All right, so anyway, that's a 1 out of 10 for Lady Bird Johnson. Now, this next one is Rosemary as Tori Nailbiter. And she's like a MTV era, like, punk / Cyndi Lauper something or other type chick. I give her a 3 out of 10. What does that sound like to you?
I'll give Rosemary a 5 simply because it's Rosemary, and she probably put a lot more effort into it than most of the other people did.
Yes. Sonic says vet shooting everything down. Oh yeah. The gun is smoking. And then we get hitmaker Sebastian Baker. This is Jimmy Jacobs. And he's got sunglasses on and a coat. I give it 2 out of 10. And he brings with him Gia Miller as Rusty Iron, who's like more of a metal kind of headbanging chick. I give Rusty
kind of like a Lita Ford almost.
a little bit, yeah, something like that. Of course, obviously a little more ridiculous than even Lita Ford, but yeah. But I give Rusty Iron a 4 out of 10 because her ass is out. So I mean, you know, it's like, thanks, Gia. You tried to give us something. I appreciate it. Bless Gia. So yeah, that's basically that. So how do Hitmaker Sebastian Baker and Rusty Iron sound? What do they get out of 10?
Those sound like sex positions.
Sex positions out of 10. Got it. Rosemary is Wendy Richter. Yeah, I mean that's somewhat the idea. A little bit, but even more. I think they even made a point to bring up MTV. So, all right. So next we have Brian Myers. Okay, and he is Brian Bone Crunchin, which is basically, I don't really know how to describe. He's just wearing like short tights and a tank top, and he's got those like Macho Man sunglasses, and he has a squirt gun or like some toy gun or other. And then his partner, who isn't able to be in the match, is G.I. Broski. And I'm sure you can imagine who that is.
Booker T?
I wish. No, but he's Booker T is on NXT, which is sadly makes this look, this makes NXT look serious, like a serious wrestling promotion. I'm gonna give Brian Bone Crunchin a 1 out of 10. Just because he just didn't wear his normal gear, so he gets a 1. And G.I. Broski is a funny pun, so I give that a 3. But he didn't actually do anything except lay on the floor being hurt, so I can't give him too much credit. Oh, he's just playing as the action figure from the Crunch Line. Well, I don't know that, and I'm proud that I didn't know that. I normally don't take pride in ignorance, but that's one thing I don't mind not knowing about. But it's still terrible, in any case. So yeah, what do you think of G.I. Broski and Brian Bone Crunchin?
I mean, a nice little throwback to Booker T's old gimmick. Other than that, you've seen military stuff before.
Right. Sunday Morning Express. This is another returning thing we've seen. This is Chris Sabin and somebody named Jack Price, where they're like newsies with a sack of newspapers on the shoulder, and the hat, the fedora with the press ticket sticking out of it.
Extra.
Yeah, that. I give Sunday Morning Express a 3 out of 10 because they dressed up. And he's like Sabin saying like, "Here's the scoop. I got a scoop for you. Like, you guys suck," or whatever he said. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But this, yeah, that's it. What do you think? What would you rate that gimmick, the newsy gimmick?
I'll give it a 4. At least they sound like they were committing to the bit.
Yeah, they definitely were. Buckshot Kid says, "I give them big credit for finding newspapers." True. And then, so this starts out as a handicap match because obviously Brian Bone Crunchin couldn't make it. He had to go alone is what I meant to say. G.I. Broski couldn't make it. And then he was saved at the last second by a dynamic dude. That's right, a dynamic dude Shane Douglas comes in, looking.
It wasn't this guy.
Nope, nope, no, it wasn't. Oh, we wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. No, instead it was Shane Douglas, and he comes in not looking particularly healthy and cleans house, if you could say that, and he hits his belly to belly suplex, and they pick up the win. I'm not going to give Dynamic Dude Shane Douglas a rating, but it wouldn't be favorable if I did. Just know that. So yeah. And then we get a promo from the Leapin' Lords, which is Matthew Raywall and Artie Evans again, like two bald guys with beards, and they're doing a promo. I don't really know what the hell they're talking about. I'm just going to give this a 2 out of 10. Just because they seem to be pretty hyped up. And then okay, here's our next gimmick. All right, let's get a rating for this one. Speedball Mike Bailey is Monsieur Baguette, in which he comes out wearing a a red beret, or was it black? He wears a beret, and he wears it had to be in red. And he wears a black and white striped shirt, horizontal stripes. And yes, he does have a baguette. And he's got the little mustache, the little curly mustache drawn on, So, he's French. This is my point. So what does that sound like out of 10, Monsieur Baguette?
I'll give it a 2.
A 2? Wow, interesting. I actually gave it a 4. Maybe you should just see it in action. Is what it is. Yeah. And as the chat is saying, he should have just came out like an 80s karate guy. Lab Rat said, "Hate Boss says, how's Mike not doing a Karate Kid gimmick?" I guess they figured that would be too on the nose. Because God forbid anybody, just phone in a gimmick on this show. We all got to go 100% creative.
I actually just looked at a clip of it. That's probably some of the most range I've seen out of Bailey. He can do a little bit more than what we've been seeing out of him.
Yes. Well, he definitely did the French part.
Which with him doing a heel thing here makes me wonder if that's where they're going with this whole thing with him and Kenny King.
Right. And then we have murder suspect. Can we even call it suspect at this point? We got the whole thing on tape. Diener. And he's playing Ornery Otis Oates. Who appears to be like some kind of a version of like, what would this be? This would be like the Fabulous Ones or something like that. Like one of these like Kenny Loggins looking male stripper type kind of guys. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to give it a 3. So because he seemed to be, into what he was doing. But yeah, that was that. What does that sound like? How do you like the male stripper, but from the 80s that has like the full feathered hair and mustache look? They all looking like Kenny Loggins. Jimmy Garvin.
Yeah.
A little bit like Jimmy Garvin, I guess.
Yeah, the old Burt Reynolds 70s porn star look.
A little bit. Quite. Well, not Burt Reynolds, but like, God, who does it look like?
Scott Hall? Early Scott Hall?
No. Looks like Kenny Loggins. Don't you know who Kenny Loggins is?
I know who he is. I've never seen a picture of him.
Well, you got the internet. But that's basically it. But he looks like he would have been in one of those like the Fabulous Ones tag teams or the Fantastics, like those guys, something like that. So, yeah. Anyway, because it's Diener, whatever. But that's kind of like that's the whole thing. Like we're talking about, oh well, because of this, Speedball maybe leaning towards being a heel. Like we could see that he's got the range to do this or that or whatever. But that's like the fundamental problem with this whole thing. This whole thing is mocking professional wrestling in a way that it's inception levels of like, where does this begin? Like with how wrong this is. Of, you know, you're mocking something and you're using guys to mock it that are in the thing that they're mocking currently on a program, some of which we're supposed to think that they have heat with each other and don't get along and are fighting, but yet they're cooperating on this show to put on a mockery of the business that they're currently in. You see what I'm saying? Like that, how the more you think of this, the more embarrassing and terrible it is, and it's why things like this should never exist. But whatever, who cares about that? Because they introduce a wrestling legend or rookie of the year 1980 Tommy Dreamer. That's it. It's just Tommy Dreamer comes out, so that's a 0. Let me just eat this real quick. All right, now here's one that we've already seen. It's Heath as Pelvis Wesley. I'm sure you can imagine who he's doing a takeoff on.
Jorge Estrada?
Yep, that's right. He's doing a Jorge Estrada gimmick. And he's got Johnny Bravo as Colonel Corn. Fuck, dude. Colonel Corn, really? The reason that Colonel Corn didn't get a 0 is because he had a corncob pipe. So I was like, all right. But he was damn near getting a 0. For me, Pelvis Wesley gets a 4 out of 10 because even though it's an obvious terrible gimmick, at least you know, Heath is trying to get something out of it. He's not getting much, but he's trying to get something out of it. So I'm giving him a 4 out of 10 for that. For anybody that's worried about my carb intake, obviously you guys don't know me at all. It's no thing for me to eat a cheesecake or a pizza in one sitting. These are just some mini muffins. I'll be fine. And they are very tasty, by the way. Strawberry cream. All right. So, all right. What do you think? A Pelvis Wesley and Colonel Corn combo. What do you rate that? How's that sound?
I'll give that a 4 together.
4 together. All right. Next is Smoky Muffler and Busty Transmission, the Auto Bodies. And that is going to be, of course, Smoky Muffler is Mickey James and Busty Transmission is ODB. All right, they're mechanics. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10 here. That's the thing, like when you're trying to do puns and stuff for names, like you have to actually use like puns that would be somewhat clever or make sense. Like Smoky Muffler, that's not a phrase that anybody uses, and it's also not the name of a person. Like no one's named Smokey. I mean, there's Smokey the Bear, Smokey Robinson, but generally
it's a nickname.
Yes. And it's also not, it'd have to be a phrase. Like, you know, Busty Transmission, that's not a phrase either. But it's a pun referring to her chest. So, you know, but I don't know. I just, you understand what I'm saying. Like generally when you try to do puns.
Bright headlights.
Well, you know, like the idea of having like a fake pun name is that it's something that could conceivably be somebody's name. But neither one of these are that. And then you get the other their opponents are Volcanic Activity, which is Tasha Steeles and Giselle Shaw, and they're in like hula girl outfits. I didn't get their individual names if they had any, so I'm just referring to them as Volcanic Activity, and I give that gimmick a 4 out of 10 because they quite had their costumes on and didn't seem like anything that they would normally wear. So just by virtue of that alone, they should get a few more points.
I agree.
All right. All right, next is a triple threat match. Johnny Swinger just comes out as himself, as he normally would. I'd debate on whether, because I'm going to give that a 0, because he just came out as himself. But on the other hand,
I think that's kind of supposed to be like because he's an out of touch 80s wrestler, so here he should be like completely at home.
Right. All right. Well, I would also normally give his gimmick a 0 in real life, but I'll just pass on it just for the intrigue of the game to see if we can get enough zeros going forward that I can finish off this plate here. So there's that. And then the opponents are Fleet Feet, Keaton Fox. All right, just off the name, what do you give that out of 10?
A 3.
A 3. All right, well, let me tell you who it is. It's Jason Hotch. Who, yes, right? The same thing we say every week. And the gimmick is, I guess he's like one of those track and field athletes that's got like the nut hugger shorts and the red, white, and blue sweatband, and the high socks and all that stuff. So you could definitely tell what, his side profession is. I give him a 2 out of 10 for his outfit. And then the other guy in the match is Bully Biff Knuckles. And yeah, what? Yeah, he's just some guy that comes out. I give him a 0. Okay, so I'm gonna have to. He just fucking comes out. He just looks like some bum. I don't know. It's the gimmick is stupid. He has a backpack for some reason. Was that to signify he's in school? Like he's a school bully?
Yeah, like you would think, like a name like that, you think like your typical '80s jock high school bully.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't really look like that. He looks like he should be managing the auto bodies. But the important thing, though, the reason this is the guy I was happy to see, because this is the guy. The guy I was trying to remember, who is this guy that was just like Jason Hotch that they used to have before they got rid of him and brought in Jason Hotch? Who is the guy? And I couldn't remember his name, and nobody in chat could remember his name. And I said I was going to look him up, but then I was like, no, I'm not going to look him up because I don't even know how. How am I supposed to do that? It's hard enough to find stuff on Impact when you know exactly what to look for, let alone when you don't. So how am I supposed to Google him? So, John Schuyler, that's the guy. It's him. He is Bully Biff Knuckles. So, I'm glad that mystery was solved so I can forget his name again in a couple more weeks. But yeah, fuck. 0 out of 10. And Ricky Morton shows up. I forget why, but it doesn't matter. It's just Ricky Morton. So I'm going to give him a 0. But it's not really, I don't know if I should eat a muffin for that because, well, I gave Tommy Dreamer a 0 and a muffin. I don't know. Throwback, Ricky Morton, muffin.
I don't know. Again, it's like if it's if it's set in the '80s and Ricky Morton's as himself, is that really out of place and wrong?
Well, Ricky Morton could have done an even more '80s gimmick if he wanted.
He could have been even more Ricky Morton-ish.
Yeah, it could have. He could have been Robert Gibson.
That would have been funny. That would have been funny.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, I'll hold off on the muffin for that. Sonny Sanders. That's Sammy Callahan. He's just Jim Cornette. He has like a bad sports coat and a tennis racket, and he has a slight, he makes no attempt at doing the Jim Cornette cadence or like anything resembling like what he would talk like. It's just him, but he's just doing a slight attempt at an accent. So for that, I'll give him a 3, which is probably the highest thing I'd ever rate him doing anything. Is a 3 out of 10. Nature Boy Buck Humphrey is Caleb with a K.
With a K.
Yeah, he's just doing Ric Flair, but not particularly well. He just has a robe and he's dyed his hair that platinum blonde. But he's not like really affecting the mannerisms or the speech of Ric Flair. So no, just dressing up is enough. So 2 out of 10 for that. But he does have Baby Doll with him. It's like the legit Baby Doll. So somehow they talked her into showing up here. She's going to get a 0 out of 10 too, but I guess I won't eat a muffin for that. And then DJ Too Large, which we've seen also before, is Moose. So he's some sort of a DJ or certainly one of those like 1980s Run DMC type rap figures. So, 2 out of 10. This just fucking sucks. And Moose can't make anything out of it, or he won't. I don't know which. But yeah. Buckshot Kid said 10. He probably assumed I would give it a 10 just because it's Moose. But y'all forget I'm the fairest man on earth. So I call it like it is. So yeah, Sonny Sanders, 3 out of 10. Nature Boy Buck Humphrey, 2 out of 10. DJ Too Large, 2 out of 10. Those are my ratings. Do any of these sound like they deserve any higher of a points to you?
Maybe one more for Moose just because it's Moose.
Okay. He can have a 3 out of 10. All right. Now here's this lineup of the main event. When I saw this, and make no mistake, you guys, I did not watch like hardly any of the actual action. Because like I said, I'm not dignifying this by reviewing it. I just skipped forward, looked at everybody's gimmicks and stuff, maybe watched them for a few seconds just to see if they did anything in the match that was like gimmick worthy. They would bring their point total up. But I wasn't actually sitting there and watching this. So when I saw this, like I went to a website and I just copy pasted it onto my notes because I was not going to write down all these names and gimmicks like I had been doing for this big tag match. So we're going to go with the IPWF side first. We have Colt McCoy, Cowboy Colt McCoy, which is Fat Eddie. I mean, if it's a cowboy gimmick and it's not just Eddie being himself, then I'm gonna give that a 2 out of 10. That's what he gets for that. I've not previously rated these yet. I'm rating them live as we go. There is a NFL quarterback named Colt McCoy. I believe he plays for the Arizona Cardinals now. And Lisbeth would probably be familiar with him as a guy that wasn't good enough to win the unquestioned starting job in Cleveland. So, yeah, that guy. But no, he's just a cowboy here. Another Disco Inferno gimmick, Tim Burr. He may not, this is Josh Alexander though. He's a lumberjack, of course. So yeah. No, Colt McCoy is a real person, says HateBot. Hey, I'm sure there's somebody out there named Timothy Burr too, but I mean, you know, we can't go through the name registry of the entire planet and make sure that no one's name is taken. We have Frank the Butcher is Rhino. We've already seen this gimmick. All right, so I'm giving Tim Burr a 2 out of 10. I'm giving Frank the Butcher a 2 out of 10. Well, I don't know. Okay, I'll give Frank the Butcher a 3 out of 10 because of Rhino's face. Actually, if it's Rhino's face, it probably gets a 4 out of 10. Boy, the Frank the Butcher rating just keeps going up. And then Giuseppe Scavelli Jr., which I've already rated a 0, so I don't have to eat another muffin. But you know, apparently, I'm told at some point that that Giuseppe Scavelli Sr. Actually took his son's place at some point in the match, so Scott D'Amore got in there and mixed it up. He was probably trying to train for when he has to beat up Bully Ray, so he wanted to get some reps in. But yeah, that doesn't really matter. So I'm going to give, 2 for the Cowboy, 2 for the Lumberjack, 4 for the Butcher, and we already gave the 0s out to the other guys. What do you think? Any of those sound intriguing to you? Would you like to see Cowboy Colt McCoy make his Impact debut? Or would you rather just Eddie just keep coming out and stinking up the joint as himself?
Cowboy Fat Eddie.
Cowboy Fat Eddie. That's even better. Okay. All right, then the Team Great Lakes Unionized Wrestling is Devin Damon, which is Crowbar. So it's like partially a take on his name, Devin Storm. But he just comes out looking like, I don't know, somebody that's overly serious. He looks like he should have been, like, if the Ascension ever had a third member, like, they would have let him in. That's what he looks like. I'll just give him a 1 out of 10. Mahabali Shira is Neptune. This is Aquaman, the Jason Momoa version. That's all this is. He's got a trident and everything. I'll give him a 2. Big Con is Lord Humongous. Straight up Lord Humongous from the Road Warrior, but also from Sid Vicious as a previous gimmick. You're just stealing this other gimmick. So here's the question. If I want to give this a 0, like, I'd only be giving it to this version of it. I don't have necessarily a problem with the Lord Humongous gimmick, except that you just literally ripped it straight out of a movie, and apparently they didn't have good lawyers because you went around calling yourself Lord Humongous. Well, actually, it's funny. He called himself Sid Vicious, and that was a person too. So, like, nobody had good copyright lawyers in the 80s where Sid's gimmicks were concerned. But I don't know. Just taking it here, and the only difference is the mask is black instead of white. I don't know. I'm gonna have to give that a 0. That just has to be a 0 right here. That's just terrible. Fucking 0. And then rounded out by Manfred the Mad Mammal, which is that's the Beer City Bruiser, which itself is a gimmick that sounds like it should be on IPWF, but that's his actual gimmick of being a fat slob with no teeth that has a beer keg. So I would give that gimmick a 1, because it's barely a gimmick, but at least he carries a keg around. But this, where he's got this, like, it's like a little piece of wood. It looks similar to, like, the size of the boards that they would use to break in karate, like when the guys will hold up a little board and you're supposed to punch or kick through it. And he's sitting there and he's like gnawing on it, even though he has no teeth or no front teeth. So, look at Colin. Is that turning into CM Punk? Yep. You can definitely tell he doesn't keep up with the product anymore. Like when he said that, he unironically thought he was being funny. Like he didn't know that this whole idea came from that. But that's Colin. That's our Colin. So yeah, the mad mammal, whatever the fuck, Manfred the mad mammal. I'm gonna have to eat another one in his honor. That's it. Those are the gimmicks. Gimmick of the show, Bill Ding with a 5 out of 10. And that would have been a 3 out of 10 if, once again, he did not pretend the measuring tape was his penis. That got him 2 extra points. So, with that said, there's more of this. They advertise it for next week. I don't know when. I don't know where it's going to appear. I don't know if it's going to be on BTI. There's certainly not enough for another pay-per-view. But man, I can't imagine those people sitting there in the building having to watch this shit. Because it's fucking boring. It's boring and stupid. Even among, like, we already know what I'm going to think of it anyway, so there was never a chance. But just because I hate something doesn't mean I have the complete inability to see the value in what other people may like about it. Even if I don't. And I think this is an affront to everything about professional wrestling, but even if you just like the corny, fake aspect of pro wrestling, and you like the parodies, and you like those kind of things, these parodies are fucking lame. Like, they are lame, and then when you watch the actual show, it may be different when you're live, but like when you're watching the program, it looks cheap, poor. It looks small scale, low budget. I can't recommend this on any level. It's just better that you miss it. So, yep. Buckshot Kid says if it comes back to near where he lives, he's going. Well, good. We'll have you on the show, and you can give a live report. But, yeah, I'm not a fan. However, one muffin survived. So, I guess, in that sense, it wasn't a total loss. Okay. Well, Brandon, you dodged a bullet. And that's going to wrap up our show. So, would you like to tell the people where they can find you?
Yep, you can find me at all the places, all the social media places, and as well as Twitch at Miss Tia the Transarchist. And as always, every Monday night right here doing the Impact Attack, where we keeping it real. Whoop, whoop.
That's right. And this is where when keeping it real goes wrong. So, you can find me at Opinion Haver on all the social media platforms, including Twitch, where I just finished, I cleaned up the last of the 9 realms. So, everything's back to normal. And God of War has been retired. It spent like 84 hours in it. think that's plenty. We'll be moving on from that. We'll figure out what next. You can find me on you'll find me sitting in maybe on the Smack Attack because like I popped in last week, but because of scheduling conflicts and some other stuff, I may be helping out John a little bit until they get things right. So you might see me there, and that's gonna usually be on Saturday mornings around like around like 11 Eastern, I would say, maybe a little later. And then you can also find me on the Next Level Wrestling Review with Big Ray Hernandez, in which we talk about NXT, which is another joke promotion, but they're not doing it on purpose. Well, some of them are. And you can that's going to be Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern, and you're not going to want to miss this one because we're going to have former WWE Tag Team Champion Mike Mondo joining us to talk about these things and break down these matches the way he does for his virtual boot camp students. So we're going to get pretty granular, as Conrad and Jeff Jarrett would say. We're going to get granular on these subjects, and we're going to like really talk about the science of pro wrestling to try to show the value that Mondo brings to his coaching, his coaching business, really. Like, this is what he's doing now. And we'll have all the information on how you can, get in contact with him and enlist his help to become the best pro wrestler you can be. So I know that for you guys in the chat, that's not as important, but there's probably a lot of professional wrestlers that are on the indies that listen to these Hameen shows and they want to pick up tips and things like that, and they'll be able to do it this way. But it's also just going to be fun to catch up with him because, he was my very first trainer in the business. So, we'll get to catch up on all that old stuff before we talk shop. So that's going to be a fun one. Don't miss that one. And I believe that's everything. Of course, sign up for Channel Attitude. All of this great value for one low price. And even if you sign up for not only Hami Media Group, but a Vince Russo brand, which I strongly recommend, then that's two whole channels at still really, even when you add it together, one great price. So no reason not to do that. Put the coffee down, sign up for Channel Attitude. Is there any other anything else, Brandon, before we get out of here?
Dad, do it. Have a great week. Whoop whoop.
All right, so for Brandon, I have been the vet, and I don't have a sign-off line.